Hey Kipsters, I hope you're having a wonderful day. We're going to keep working on Europe, looking at how Europe took over the world and the positives and negatives of that. So let's get started. So today we're going to go ahead and read about the positive and negative effects of European colonization on Africa. The whole world has been affected by European colonization. So we looked at how America has been affected, and now we're going to specifically look at the positive and negative effects of colonization on Africa. Later, we're going to be able to use the details from this article in order to explain the positive and negative effects of colonization. Before we get started on reading about Africa, I want you to go ahead and take 2 minutes. Think back to the video of colonization in America using the video and your knowledge about colonization to answer the question below. So what was the positive and negative effect of colonization in America? And I want you to go ahead and write the positives in this section of your graphic organizer and then the negatives in this section. Go ahead and take 2 minutes now. That was about 1 minute. If you need more time to finish, go ahead and pause the video or rewind so that you have another minute to finish up. We're going to go ahead and move on. So the 3 big ideas that I need you to take down in your notes is that colonization was taking over other countries so that your country can have more power and resources. So colonization was taking over other countries so that your country can have more power and resources. Our world is the way it is today because of this early colonization by European powers. So everything in our world is the way it is today because of this early colonization by European powers. And we can look at the map and tell who has the most power by looking at how much land they have taken over. So I can look at the map to the right and see that it looks like the Spanish took over much more land than the Danish or even the French. Although the French have a large piece of land, it looks like the Spanish have way more. So they probably have the most power and resources in that region. We're going to go ahead and read along together. So if you could put your finger or your pencil and follow along as I read our article. When we're done, you're going to go ahead and tweet a summary to the right. So you're going to include your handle at your name or your made up name. And then you're going to do a quick summary using 140 characters or left. And don't forget your hashtags. So first, let's read together. The slave trade and colonialism destroyed traditional cultures and social systems in Africa. The impact and effects have been felt for the centuries following the arrival of the Europeans. Before the Europeans came, Africans had varied ways of life under different kinds of governments. They ranged from kings and great empires to states with democratic rule. They lived in great cities as well as in small villages, in remote forests. Some were nomadic hunters, meaning that they traveled around to follow their food, while others were skilled craftsmen and artists. The existence of slavery was even noted in Africa long before the Europeans arrived. Rulers in Mali and Songhai had thousands of slaves who worked as soldiers, servants, and farm workers. Villages raided one another to take captives and sell them into slavery. Sometimes a slave could work and earn his or her freedom. Teammates, go ahead and take this time to fill out your summary to the right. What is this paragraph talking about? All right, teammates, let's move to the next part. In the 1400s, Europeans introduced a form of slavery that changed African life and society forever. This was the introduction of the European slave trade in Africa. The Europeans raided towns to capture unwilling Africans. The introduction of slavery into these communities and the greed and survival instincts that followed that introduction turned African nations and people against one another, as that some Africans were captured in war or sold to European traders by other Africans. So go ahead and tell me to the right what is happening in this paragraph. Write down your summary. Let's move on to our last paragraph. It is estimated that 10 to 12 million Africans were forced into slavery and sent to European colonies in North and South America from 1520 to 1860. Many more were captured, but approximately 16% died of disease or starvation during transport before arriving in the colonies. In addition to Africans being captured and sold into slavery, many were killed during raids. About 2/3 of those taken were men between the ages of 18 and 30. Slave traders chose young, strong, healthy people, leaving few behind to lead families and villages. African cities and towns did not have enough workers. Family structures were destroyed. These impacts were only one side of the story. The effects of the slave trade for Africans were equally as devastating and long-lasting on the western side of the Atlantic Ocean. Go ahead and take the next 30 seconds to finish this last summary for me. So teammates, the slave trade was one of the largest impacts on Africans, one of the largest negative impacts on Africans from colonization. We're going to look at some positive impacts on Africa later. Make sure that you finish up any notes that you need to, and don't forget to be thinking about both the positive and the negative impacts that colonization might have on a country. Have a great day, Kipsters.